as we're continuing with the conversation, of course, on the first show, Kira Motors has come up once again to say that they're planning to produce 1,000 buses in Uganda, and those buses will be both electric and they will use petrol. Now, we know that Kira Motors has, since time immemorial, tried to create those buses. Of course, and now they're partnering with, I'm trying to get the information because I just saw it this morning, they're partnering with a company, a domestic manufacturing bus of the regional market, and they're saying that they'll be producing these buses. We all know that Kira Motors is one of those bus companies that has produced one or two buses that has tried to I have been able to sit in one or two of them, and they're saying that they'll be using electric and solar systems. But what is the reality that Kira Motors finally produces buses for Ugandans to use?
With, of course, the ongoing economy situation, we have to look at exactly where these buses, first of all, are going to be stationed. Because if you look at the transport issues that we have in Uganda right now, we have the main building where buses and taxis used to park, where the old park, which is being renovated right now. And so the taxis have to park on the sides, if you have seen on the rail, on the pavements and stuff like that, and they are not in the park inside. Now, if you add these buses that are coming, where are they going to be stationed?
When we're looking at the
that is
conversation,
one. Two,
of the buses, sorry to cut you short, and just to answer that particular the question that you were on, is that, see, when they were discussing the buses, that means the number of taxis are going to be cut down, and that means that borders are going to be stopped from entering the city center. We had this conversation, and they were saying even the taxis, the very many taxis, would be stopped from entering the city center. We know the construction of the flyover, again, especially Kusawaya Queen, it is going ahead, and we see that it's a fast progress, and we hope that it happens, because we also know that as we're constructing the flyover, Kampala city central knows how to flood when there is a heavy rain. Now, all those are issues that we're supposed to deal with. Now, when we look at the fact that we're now planning to deal with Kira Motors, Kira Motors is a company that has been trying to produce buses. Last time, when the European Union had a sitting session with His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in resort, in the Munyonyo resort, they were discussing about the economic partnership between Uganda and the European nations, and the question of Kira Motors was raised. And during that session, there were different room sessions, where, of course, in one room, there'd be a session discussing Kira Motors and what people wanted to partner with Kira Motors. In the other session would be an NGO that was asking who wanted to partner with women empowerment programs. So I sat in the situational room where Kira Motors was being discussed. Their worth is quite a lot, that is the truth. And they look like they have a plan of producing these buses, and it looks like their plan will work. But again, unless this city is organized, we're looking at a problem, like you said, of congesting the city more.
That's just one problem, because if you take a look at the transport issues, like I've mentioned, the economy of Uganda right now, how are you going to convince a layman Ugandan that this taxi is 1,000 shillings? But we have a bus here that's 2,500, you go comfortably and reach home, and then which Ugandan will accept to pay 2,500 as compared to the taxis? Even if the taxis are in poor mechanical conditions, some of you who have been on the roads know that our taxis here, some of them need help. They need the hand of God, and we are just traveling by God's grace. But the buses would be a very better option, of course, and a more comfortable solution. But how will Ugandans receive this in terms of pocket-wise?
But who says that these buses are going to be more expensive than the taxis? That's a question that you ought to ask yourself. Because if we look at these orange buses that are already moving, the Pioneer buses, they're cheaper than taxis. Because where we are, from the time that COVID-19 started, and then there was a communication to taxis for them to cut the number of people that sit in those minivans, and they said there has to be 2 people in every seat. Taxis increased their amount of money that they take people on. Now, on a usual, borders would take you at, before COVID-19, 3,000 from, of course, Munyonyo or Buziga, where I am, to town. And now the price has been increased to 5,000. But taxis take you to, at what, 3,000 or 4,000 or even 5,000 sometimes, because they want to make up for the missing seats that are in those. So at the end of the day, we see that taxis are also quite expensive. And when we have buses, like the ones Kira Motors is trying to do, 2 things is going to happen. One, we're going to have environmentally it's going to be safe because they're looking at electronic buses. So it's safe environmentally for the Kira buses to be in Uganda. And then we also know that decongestion is going to happen because one bus equals 2 minivans.
Yes. Okay,
and they say that they're looking at employing both directly and indirectly over 10,000 people in Uganda. And that means a lot of people who are dealing in minivans will move to the other side, buses.
Cross over to the buses.
But again, here's the thing. The people who bought these minivans.
Yes.
The people who
survive
in these minivans. Yes. And that means that their capital is in there.
That's
so
true.
What happens when we get rid of the minivans?
That's the fracas that's going to happen, because those are the questions that I was saying that we need to ask ourselves. There's a lot of issues in transport, because if you remember very well, Latifa, when the Ministry of Works and Transport wanted to displace border borders because they were congesting the city right from the outskirts until town, and the border borders were saying, where do you want us to get food? We are trying to make a living out of the border borders, and it is our only way of survival. And if you take it away, that means you have taken our jobs away. Much as the buses that are incoming are going to employ over 10,000 people, we should also look at the 10,000 people that are being employed in the taxi business currently. And of course, the business owners, the investors who went and bought these taxis. A taxi is quite expensive, especially getting it out of the bond. That's what that's what I've read about, and to my knowledge, it's very expensive. I'm just wondering how who is going to buy these taxis in order for them to exchange now and go to the buses. Is there any plan for that? Yes, and the other question that should be asked is the fact that the fuel prices matter a lot when it comes to any changes in transport. Because if these buses cost a lot of fuel, that means the owners are going to have to retrieve it back by charging the passengers highly, which is why I was saying, what if these buses cost more than the usual taxis that we are used to? What happens there? There's going to be a lot of fracas on this particular story. And I hope that the people that are involved with the motors that are bringing the buses have sat down and really planned out their thing, because we do not want another problem coming in as the taxis are trying to fight the buses, and then the buses are trying to fight the border borders, and you find a lot of ruckus in the Ministry of Transport. We already have enough ruckus. Okay, I don't want us to forget, we are already congested. Kampala gets congested every single day. Of course, because it's the capital city, and I don't know why our leaders don't plan and say, okay, let's extend it to the outskirts. But even if they extended it to the outskirts, I can't go to, I don't want to live in Chengera. No, I want to stay in the city center.
No, they have
and
planned
I believe more
for decongestion, just to guide you. They have planned on decongestion. I remember telling you that their plan is that in the city center, there will be no border borders and there will be no taxis, and they will stop in the outskirts of the city center.
I understand that. I'm just looking at what's the plan of implementing exactly that, because we saw in the news, they had planned it, yes. They had planned to decongest the city, build flyovers, get border borders out of the city, make sure they don't pass some main roads like Kolol, Nakasero, and stuff like that. When is it going to be implemented to make sure that it's going to happen? Is it going to happen next week?
No, definitely
of course.
Not next week.
We still have a lot of time.
Because even Chira Motors is planning that 1,030 of their buses will be produced by the end of 2021. However, they also say that by the end of 2030, Chira Motors is, of course, going to produce 30,000 buses. And they
for just Uganda, or?
No. They'll also have it they'll export it in the regional markets.
Okay.
And they say that most of the spare parts of these buses by 2030 will be localized. Now, the information I was looking for when I was looking through the tab and I needed to talk about it is that the information that is there is that when they're creating these buses, it goes with the 2040 outlined in the National Development Plan 3, and of course they say the NR Manifesto 2021-2026 in the promotion of local manufacturing motor vehicles in Uganda, by Uganda, build Uganda, and then establishment of an efficient, integrated, sustainable, safe, and inclusive public transportation, and that's why the buses that are moving in town are quite affordable, and then promotion of environmentally friendly solutions, and that's what I was looking for, and of course as we're fighting environmental degradation.
Let's digest environmentally friendly resource. What exactly do they mean? Do they mean that, are they talking about pollution?
Electric, yes. When they talk about electric buses, then they're talking about dealing with pollution. We know China is one of those very industrialized countries.
Yes.
But we also know that they have bullet trains and electric trains that are working more than the conventional local, transport means. And we also know that a lot of people in the European nations have resorted to riding bicycles in the fight against environmental degradation.
Wow, okay. So I'm looking at Uganda where we have these new buses and they're transporting people here and there. Does it mean our development has stopped there and we're not going to have to acquire trains? Because I'm looking at a country like Uganda developing its wings to trains would be better than the buses. We've already had episodes of buses that have come onto the scene and maybe caused a few changes here and there. But aren't we looking at something more than road transport?
Of course it's going to happen. We already have a train in Uganda. We already have a train that is moving and it transports people from here to Namamve, from Kampala to Namamve. Yes, we already have a train and it's moving. And of course, Uganda has said
that it's going to open up. Do we compare it to the electronic trains of the Chinese?
It's a slow progress, just to be fair. It's a slow progress from taxis to buses to the trains and then to the electronic trains. One step at a time. We'll get there. We're a country that's developing. We're still developing with the president that has been, of course, in power for the last few years. Now we'll go straight to the newspaper review. And that is exactly the bus that we have been talking about, the electric buses. Very impressive
it looks
buses.
Good.
That,
it looks
no, it
really,
does.
Really
it looks good. And the people who have been in it, me myself, I have been in it.
Really? Tell us about the experience.
It's quite smooth. It's quite spacious.
Yes.
And if it is going to work in Uganda, I know for sure that it will work. Because even when you see the Pioneer buses, they have been planned quite well to be spacious, and there's space for you to stand, there's space for you to hold yourself as well. So it's quite impressive. And we hope that Chira Motors will promote Uganda in exporting buses. Will be one of the African countries that will be exporting buses or cars that were produced in Uganda. I'm looking forward to that.
That's
I'm really
beautiful.
looking forward to that.
Supporting Bubu by Uganda.
Build Uganda. I'm looking forward to that. Right. Well, moving forward to the daily reviews and what we have. Well, my first story on the paper is that Chambogo University land title goes missing. Okay. That is a story that I must read after I am done with this session. Chambogo University Vice Chancellor says they discovered the land title was missing after they attempted to slap a caveat on the institutional asset that is being claimed by Kampala District Land Board. Chambogo University is in trouble.
I cannot believe that their land title went missing. How? There was no fire in Chambogo. We have not covered any story. They acquired a new gate recently, and their students were trying to take pictures at their gate. And social media was saying, Chambogo, please, don't start. But that's from the Daily Monitor and in the New Vision. I don't know if these two papers plan their headlines the night before, because my headlining story is schools reopening and inspections begin. Remember, I covered a story here where there was going to be another inspection of schools to make sure that the COVID-19 is combated properly in these schools, to make sure the SOPs are going to be followed, to make sure the teachers are ready to handle the students, to make sure there's enough equipment to help combat the disease of COVID-19. That's my top story today in the New Vision.
Well, as we're moving forward, I usually tell you that my most interesting part of this particular daily is they have from the archives or today in history, and we're seeing students undergo Mchaka military drills in Chankwanzi in 1995, and during that time students who had completed A-level were mandated to participate in this exercise. I was part of the people who was in university and then went for the patriotism exercise that was also
that in university?
I did that in university, not my secondary school. Where did you do it?
Kaboja Junior School. We had Kachakam, St. Lo, we had Chakam, all throughout.
But mine, we went to Jinja, to the military barracks in Jinja, and that's where we did our training for 2 months. And it was a military drill, and it was fun while
How did you handle? Because I dodged Chakam all through. I made sure
this is
I
what
passed
happened.
behind
When I finished
doors.
that training, I told myself, I think I'm ready to join the army.
You can handle anything, Latifa. Now, if you went through that training, because I just attended it for 2 days, and waking up at 5 was the biggest challenge, because it was just, you wake up, go run, and do some things that are so hard for the body, but they keep you fit.
Here
Latifa is fit.
Here you are waking up early in the morning
at
4 a.m. to come
to
for the first show. And today in history, they also have Prince Suna is born to Mwanga and Uganda's first private university. I thought I'd see Janan Lubumi here
today in history. Because I'm not seeing it. The New Vision also has today in history on the second page.
Okay.
That's why I was asking you, do these 2 papers plan? On today in history, in New Vision, Museveni climbs Mount Rwenzori. That's today in history. So in 2000, on February 16th, Museveni climbed Mount Rwenzori to assess the situation in mountain ranges following the deployment of the army to flush out the rebels. Of course, it had to do with the rebels that we had then that were causing some destabilization around the country. Also, February 16th, archaeologists opened tombs of King Tut here in Uganda in 1923. That was a very long time ago. There's also a COVID-19 update on my second page. That's of the New Vision, where total cases have now gone to 40,055. The total deaths are at 328, and the total recoveries are at 14,520. There's no new death so far, as well as new recoveries are not there. That's a COVID-19 update from the New Vision.
When we look at the dailies, there's a story where they say Bank of Uganda extends credit relief measures to banks for more 6 months. We know that the COVID-19 situation has affected a lot of people, banks inclusive. So for the Bank of Uganda to extend a relief measure, we're quite happy about that. I'm not in the banking sector, but I'm happy because now you see if they're going to have a 15% taxation on us when we're withdrawing money, then we're in trouble. And if there was no relief, then there would also be trouble because the charges will be increased by the bank. So moving forward, we don't know about missing persons. The police insists that they know nothing about missing persons.
Latifa, what do you think about this? Because if the president says the forces know where these missing persons are, and the police says, we don't know where these missing persons are.
We can see the picture of Edward Ochom and Grace Akulo, the CID director, and they're saying they know nothing because they're saying that the president actually ordered them to release names of the people that were missing, and they say they know nothing about these names. Now, all that and more in the dailies. Please find yourself one and read. And then the funny one on the dailies, that is page 5, is a man was held over flogging an effigy. What is an effigy? An effigy is a dummy that looks like a man. It's not a human being, but it's something that's dressed in a man's clothing, and the man was flogging it. And according to the police, he was arrested for flogging an effigy of a person whom he accused of engaging in election malpractice. And he said that this particular effigy, he was shouting in loudspeaker and he was beating up the effigy and saying that it was responsible for cheating in the just concluded elections. I mean, I think we Ugandans, or a lot of Ugandans, are mentally disturbed about the just concluded elections and everything that is going on. And I have insisted that the country needs to have a stronger mental facility to help in not only the just concluded elections, but also the COVID-19 pandemic that came and hit Ugandans. And we didn't know what to do with such unprecedented events that happened from 2020 to 2021.
Yes, in the New Vision, moving on, some of the arrests are terrorists, says police and security forces on page 4 of the national news in the New Vision today, as well as why NUP supporters were denied bail again. Of course, you can get these stories on the national news in the New Vision on page 4. Page 5, however, is a very interesting story where over 30,000 are expected to declare their incomes this year. These are public leaders given 1 month to declare their wealth or be interrogated by the IGG. I'm just wondering if even the people who are poor are going to be interrogated to find out the cause of their poverty, just like these ones are being asked to declare the source of their wealth and income. I hope we do have some sort of fairness there, as well as Uganda on high alert as new Ebola outbreak ravages Congo. Now, this is the 12th Ebola outbreak in the DRC that is different from the other 11 breakouts that have been there in the country. And of course, the World Health Organization has come out to declare a vaccination that is coming to the DR Congo in the affected parts. We should not forget that Guinea-Bissau yesterday declared, of course, another outbreak of the Ebola virus in their country, the Ebola epidemic. And they say a 28-year-old nurse, of course, passed on from the Ebola disease. And they're also planning, the World Health Organization is also planning to have the people in Guinea-Bissau affected areas also vaccinated. Of course, Uganda Ministry of Health has tried to be very alert and make sure that the virus does not cross from Congo to Uganda like it has been in the previous years, because it will be a lot of work handling a pandemic and an epidemic.
Well, as we're going to the other dailies, we know that court has now rejected the new Bobi Wine evidence. Yesterday, Bobi Wine put up his evidence and the Supreme Court rejected additional evidence in 127 affidavits that the lawyers of the former presidential candidate, Robert Chagulanyi, attempted to file in support of his petition. They say that this particular evidence was brought late to court. Now, as we move forward, there's also the story of the 36 Bobi Wine supporters who were denied bail again. And also, we have the Archbishop, Janan Luwum, a matter of hope and healing finally. The story is here on page 16, and they called it a tribute to Janan Luwum, a whole page dedicated to him. Of course, that is going to be our topic of discussion. And then on page 9, we have government names team to advise on COVID-19 vaccine access. We know that the country has been able to get around 80 million vaccines, and they say that it will be given to only those who are critically ill of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, on page 7, that is the New Vision. Pope Francis knights 8 Ugandans. You will find that. All right, you will find that story where Pope Francis knights 8 Ugandans, and of course a story from the FDC where those pushing for the 7th term are greedy. FDC official Kaija says those people pushing, we do know that some parliamentary leaders are pushing for the term to be amended, for the constitution to be amended a bit, and the term limits be pushed to 7 years for the elected leaders. Now FDC said those people are greedy, but of course he's facing judgment because we are wondering if it's because he's not in office for now. Moving on, Captain Businje laid to rest in Rukunjiri. You will get to find that story in the paper, as well as another Ugandan businessman killed in South Sudan. Oh my God, that is a very sad story. Remembering that other 2 have been killed in Dubai just recently. Other 2 businessmen have been killed in Dubai. Experts recommend double masking. That's also from the papers of today, where a study has shown that when all people interacting wear double masks, the spread of COVID-19 is further reduced. Now, the study recommends mass masking as highly effective means to slow the spread of the illness, which has killed over 2.3 million people globally. That's from and then moving on, the commemoration of the late Archbishop Janan Zakaria Luwum will be taking place today, and it will be a topic of discussion, like Latifa said. And of course, 14,000 students miss out on Chambogo admission. There is another story about Chambogo here when you take a look at the papers, as well as Katongole tips fresh graduates on jobs. Mabirizi wants Chief Justice of Chagulanyi petition, and Rotarians laud Medic's selfless service.
Well, as we move forward, Museveni's half-truths and misses in security addresses a feature about that particular station. And then 22 arrested as security busts fake dollar racket. Now, that story is also featuring. Now, moving forward, we have Tanzania's Magufuli and his anti-science fantasies. We know that Tanzania has been one of the countries that has stopped counting the COVID-19 cases, and a lot of people have condemned that act. But Magufuli says, hey, we're not suffering from COVID-19, and we're not accepting the vaccines that come with it. And as we're moving forward, we have a pullout of Prosper. Of course, that's business for you to look at, and URA changes tact to boost tax collections. Carol.
All right, police tax operators partner to fight COVID-19. This is from the Ministry of Works and Transport, where police and tax operators have partnered to fight COVID-19. You should take a look at how, as well as COVID-19, children with cancer get isolation rooms because of the fear of the spread of the virus, as well as some engineers are being registered on board. And if you are not a registered engineer, you will risk termination and deletion from the engineers register. Of course, Luwum's statue stands tall among Christian matters. That's a big story of the day today, where they put statues of the late Janan Luwum here in the papers, and of course a little background of his life and death. STV will be bringing you a piece about Janan Luwum's day, I think, later on. Please do stay with us and watch that clip. Now, lessons from Dominic Ongwen's ICC judgment are also in today's papers, as well as James Ochan's brutal murder, a call for equal protection of the law. Now, security agencies also should heed the president's order, says this paper, and how opposition rigged 2021 elections is also a piece.
When we look at Dominic's case,
yes,
and there's a paper, there's a story here on the dailies that says judging child soldiers squaring the circle.
Yes.
When we read the ICC story and the judging of Dominic's case, we know that he was pulled into the LRA as a child soldier.
Yes.
And we're asking ourselves, how will the ICC take on that case and how will they judge it? Of course, regarding the fact that he was taken into the rebel group as a young child.
Yes.
Is the question that I'm asking myself. Now, moving forward, we have women in Namutumba cry for a maternity ward, and the president, during his inauguration speech, or his speech as he was elected as the winner in the recently concluded elections, the president said that one of the places that he will be concentrating on is, of course, health and reducing the maternal mortality rate, and he'll be cutting that down. We're yet to see what happens in the 5 years that he will be staying in power. Of course, 5 years for the president, and now members of parliament want 7 years to stay in power. Issues that we ought to discuss. And then Kayunga RDC vows to beat up corrupt health staff. And that is an interesting one. It reminds me of the Genie story, where the president actually fired people from the COVID-19 task force who misused the COVID-19 funds. And then we have CCTV cameras in Ginger Market faulty for 7 years. That's a very interesting story regarding the money that we put in there. Now, in the international scene, Biden calls on Congress to reform U.S. gun laws. One of the conversations that are very critical in the U.S. gun laws. And finally, concluding, of course, the dailies, we have the sports segment where energy-starved Reds try luck in Europe. Barcelona face PSG. And we have why are Vipers yet to be crowned.
All right, wrapping up this paper, use strategic communication to connect with the citizens, says comments and letters from you, the people, and the letter of the day, which is Ash Wednesday, begins the 40 days of the Lent season that is coming up soon, as well as Easter, which is along the way. Your guide away from school, that's past A level, where there's a lot of mathematics that I wouldn't want to get into because I am not a mathematician. Chemistry questions, I can try, biology, as well as other physics and all the A levels that you need in the papers today, as well as do we need stabilization clauses in the 21st century is also a story you need to look out for. And why steel piles have been used on flyover projects. Maybe they're stronger, maybe they're durable, who knows? You should find out about that story in today's papers. Then the most overlooked energy source on earth, which is the water, I think. I'm seeing pictures of the water. Please go ahead and look at the story, as well as Hoima Sugar on the sport over NEMA guidelines. This is a story that STV has been following up, and we will continue to follow up today, as well as teachers from hard to reach areas urged to work in their schools. You can imagine that. Please do take a look at the story. Ginger Mayor elected promises to fight land grabbing. I think that's a very big issue that he should work on. And then when I move to sports, there's a very big headline that says, what a solid start, where the chess champion seeks President Museveni to talk to him and find out exactly why chess is not supported as it should be in Uganda, as well as the picture of the week where Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang notched a major career milestone when he scored his first Premier League hat-trick in Arsenal's 4-2 win against Leeds United. The hat-trick took him to 200 career goals across Europe's 5 leagues. wrapping up the press.
We've wrapped up the press review, and of course, before we get out of this session, I would like to congratulate Joshua Cheptegei on his Monaco win. He's really raising our flag high, and he's making us proud. And I'll repeat it over and over and over again. We Ugandans are very proud of you.